Beloved friends, listen carefully. Tonight is not just any night, and this message is not just another prayer. October is a season of harvest, alignment, and supernatural favor. And what you are about to hear has the power to shift your entire life. For those who have been waiting for breakthrough, for financial increase, for restoration in relationships, or for doors to open that seemed permanently closed, this is your moment. This is the time to position yourself in faith, expectation, and gratitude. Because heaven is ready to respond. In the next few minutes, you will discover how daily faith decrees, prophetic declarations, and thanksgiving can transform your circumstances. You will learn how speaking life over your finances, health, and opportunities can align you with God's timing, and how expectation and alignment release blessings that have been waiting for you. This is not theory. This is a spiritual principle that, when applied, brings tangible results. I urge you to stay with me until the very end, because the prayer and declaration at the close of this message is crafted to release favor, provision, and breakthrough into your life instantly. Don't scroll away. Don't let distractions steal this moment, because tonight your faith has a chance to create a turning point. Prepare your heart, open your spirit, and get ready to experience the most powerful October blessing prayer ever. Your breakthrough is closer than you think, and by the time this message ends, your life will never be the same. The seasonal authority of October carries a spiritual significance that is often overlooked. Yet it holds a key to unlocking divine blessings. Every month in the calendar of life has a unique energy and purpose, and October is no exception. It is a month of transition, a bridge between seasons, a time when the old must give way to the new. Spiritually, transition is a moment of heightened sensitivity, a window when heaven leans in to hear the prayers of those who are ready. Just as nature shifts in October, the leaves falling, the air changing, the harvest reaching completion, our spiritual lives are called to shift toward growth, provision, and preparation for what lies ahead. Recognizing this, a believer who prays with intention in October is not merely reciting words. They are tapping into the very rhythm of divine timing. October is a harvest month, symbolically representing the fruits of effort, faith, and obedience. What was planted in the previous months, whether in prayer service or diligence, now has the potential to bear fruit. To pray in alignment with this season is to acknowledge that the time for harvest is present, that heaven is ready to release blessings that have been long anticipated. Those who understand the spiritual authority of the month approach it with expectancy, declaring provision, favor, and breakthrough. They recognize that prayer is amplified when it corresponds with the divine schedule. Just as farmers wait for the right season to reap, so too does the believer approach October with patience, faith, and deliberate action, knowing that the spiritual atmosphere is charged for manifestation. Moreover, October is a month of preparation and positioning. The transition it represents is not merely external, it is deeply internal. This is a time to realign the heart, adjust priorities, and clear spiritual obstacles. Prayers offered in this season are more powerful because they coincide with a cosmic momentum that favors alignment with purpose. When believers understand this, their declarations do not fall on deaf ears. They resonate with the currents of heaven, moving in synchronization with divine intent. This is why prophetic prayers in October carry extraordinary weight. It is a month when promises long held in faith begin to take tangible form, when breakthrough can be sudden, and when provision can overflow unexpectedly. To pray with awareness of October's seasonal authority is to engage both faith and wisdom. It requires recognizing that God's timing is perfect and that strategic prayers uttered with expectation, faith, and alignment have the capacity to reshape circumstances. Those who pray in this season with understanding are not merely participating in a ritual. They are partnering with God in a time when spiritual momentum is heightened. October becomes more than a month. It becomes a spiritual catalyst, a time of favor, a moment for divine intervention, and a portal through which blessings flow to those who are positioned in faith. The power of daily faith decrees lies in their ability to shape a believer's destiny through consistency and intentionality. Faith is not a one-time event, it is a continuous posture of the heart, expressed daily through words, actions, and declarations. When a person speaks blessings, favor, protection, and provision every day, they are effectively programming their spirit to expect supernatural overflow. These daily declarations are like seeds sown into the soil of the Spirit. With time, nurture, and repetition, they grow into tangible manifestations. Just as a farmer tends to crops every day to see a harvest, so does the believer who engages in daily faith decrees prepare the ground for miracles to appear in their life. Daily faith decrees are not merely motivational affirmations. They are declarations that carry spiritual authority. The spoken word in faith is powerful because it aligns the believer with God's will and activates divine principles. Every time a person declares protection over their family, financial increase over their work, or favor over their relationships, they are effectively calling heaven into action. These declarations create a spiritual pattern, a rhythm in the unseen realm that heaven responds to. The repetition of faith-filled words solidifies belief, strengthens expectation, and cultivates a spiritual environment where miracles can manifest. In essence, daily decrees train the mind, heart, and spirit to recognize and receive the blessings that are already available in the spiritual realm. Moreover, daily faith decrees build resilience and focus in the believer's life. Life is full of distractions, delays, and challenges that can easily derail hope. By committing to speak and declare faith daily, the believer establishes a constant reminder of God's promises and their own authority as a child of God. These decrees serve as both spiritual armor and a declaration of intent. They reinforce the truth that God's power is not limited by circumstances, timing, or human understanding. Over time, this consistent practice reshapes the believer's thought patterns, replacing fear, doubt, and limitation with expectation, confidence, and purpose. The act of daily declaration also fosters alignment between belief and action. Words spoken in faith guide decisions, inspire courage, and influence behavior. When a believer declares provision, favor, or breakthrough, their actions begin to reflect that belief. They become more proactive in seeking opportunities, more generous in sowing seeds, and more attentive to doors opening in their life. Daily faith decrees do not merely influence the spiritual realm, they also transform the believer's mindset and actions, creating a synergy between divine promises and human responsibility. Finally, daily faith decrees cultivate an atmosphere of continuous gratitude. They are not only about asking, but also about acknowledging God's past faithfulness and current provision. Gratitude amplifies faith, strengthens expectation, and invites more of heaven's favor. Each day becomes an opportunity to reinforce belief, speak life, and invite blessings. Through this practice, the believer experiences steady growth in faith, heightened awareness of God's presence, and the unfolding of divine favor in every area of life. The cumulative effect of these daily faith declarations is that they set the stage for long-lasting, unstoppable, and visible breakthroughs. The spoken word creates reality because it carries the authority of faith into the unseen realm, shaping circumstances and aligning the natural with the spiritual. Words are not mere sounds or expressions of thought. They are powerful instruments through which belief is activated and manifested. When a believer speaks blessings, favor, protection, or provision aloud, they are effectively declaring what they expect to see. And the universe responds to that declaration. In the spiritual dimension, the spoken word has weight and energy, moving forces that are invisible to the human eye, but profoundly influential in the natural world. What begins as a declaration in the mouth can ultimately appear as a tangible change in life, relationships, finances, and health. Speaking words of faith is a deliberate act of creation because it aligns the believer's mind and heart with divine promises. The words spoken in expectation of God's goodness serve as a bridge between the seen and unseen, inviting supernatural intervention into ordinary circumstances. Every blessing pronounced, every decree of protection spoken, and every declaration of abundance released in faith carries a spiritual resonance that cannot be ignored. These words are not random affirmations. They are intentional proclamations that reflect belief in God's faithfulness and readiness to act on behalf of His children. The spoken word becomes a tool for programming the Spirit, building expectation, and opening doors for provision. The process of speaking faith-filled words also strengthens belief. When a person declares what they believe, their mind begins to internalize it and the heart begins to anticipate it. There is a synergy between speaking and believing that activates spiritual momentum. Words create a sense of certainty in the midst of uncertainty, turning hope into expectation and expectation into reality. When repeated consistently, spoken declarations cultivate an atmosphere in which miracles can manifest naturally. The act of vocalizing faith bridges the gap between potential and actualization, translating divine possibilities into tangible outcomes. Furthermore, the spoken word functions as a weapon against limitation and negativity. Life often presents obstacles, delays, and discouragements that threaten to block blessings. Speaking words of faith counters fear, doubt, and limitation by reaffirming truth and asserting divine authority over circumstances. Declarations of abundance, favor, and breakthrough serve to dismantle barriers, releasing the flow of blessing that was already prepared. Words spoken in alignment with faith operate like commands that direct spiritual forces, overturning what once seemed impossible and calling provision into manifestation. The creative power of spoken words also establishes expectation and prepares the believer to receive. By declaring what is hoped for, the heart and mind begin to act in harmony with faith, making decisions, taking actions, and recognizing opportunities that align with the spoken decree. Words activate both the spiritual and natural realms, setting a course that attracts resources, divine ideas, and favorable encounters. The consistent practice of speaking life, declaring blessings, and calling forth abundance transforms not only circumstances, but also character, perspective, and identity. In essence, spoken words are the tools through which faith becomes visible and through which heaven's provision is invited into the believer's reality. Expectation and alignment are essential principles in the life of a believer because miracles and blessings respond not merely to prayer, but to the posture of the heart that anticipates fulfillment. Expectation is the inner conviction that what has been promised is already on its way, and it prepares the spirit to receive. Without expectation, faith remains passive and prayers can become routine or mechanical. When a believer prays with true expectation, they are actively participating in the unfolding of divine plans, signaling to heaven that they are ready to receive the blessing. This expectancy creates a spiritual atmosphere in which God's promises can manifest swiftly, and it positions the believer to recognize and seize opportunities that align with divine provision. Alignment works hand in hand with expectation. It is the process of bringing the heart, mind, and actions into harmony with God's will and timing. A believer may have faith and pray diligently, but if their thoughts, choices, or lifestyle contradict the principles of abundance, favor, or divine provision, the blessing may be delayed. Alignment ensures that every part of a person's being resonates with the truth of God's promises. It is the inner consistency that turns prayer into action and belief into manifestation. When the heart expects and the life aligns with that expectation, the spiritual laws respond in favor of the believer, creating a powerful synergy between faith and reality. Expectation is active, not passive. It requires belief in the unseen and confidence that God is faithful. A person who prays with expectation does not merely hope for a change, they declare it with certainty, knowing that heaven moves in response to faith that anticipates fulfillment. This anticipation influences decisions, words, and actions, making the believer alert to divine opportunities and ready to act when doors open. It also strengthens perseverance as the heart remains anchored in promise rather than circumstance. When expectation is coupled with alignment, the believer is prepared both spiritually and practically to receive the blessing as it manifests in their life. Alignment also includes surrender to divine timing. The believer recognizes that God's schedule is perfect and that waiting does not mean denial. Aligning with God's will often requires humility, obedience, and patience, and it positions the believer to receive more than they could imagine. Misalignment, on the other hand, can block the flow of blessings even when prayers are fervent. Expectation without alignment can lead to frustration, and alignment without expectation can lead to complacency. Together, they create a balance that ensures prayer is not empty but effective. When expectation and alignment are fully embraced, they produce a readiness that transforms the believer's life. The challenges are faced with confidence, opportunities are recognized and acted upon, and blessings are received with gratitude and stewardship. The combination of anticipating the miraculous and living in harmony with divine principles creates momentum in both the spiritual and natural realms. Expectation shapes perception, alignment shapes action, and together they unlock the fullness of God's provision. This principle is especially powerful during moments of prayer, prophetic declaration, or seasonal alignment, when the believer positions themselves to receive blessings in their fullness. Breaking limitations and curses is a vital aspect of experiencing divine blessings, especially when seeking financial, relational, or spiritual breakthroughs. Many believers carry unseen barriers inherited from past experiences, family patterns, or spiritual strongholds that hinder the flow of provision and favor. These limitations can manifest as recurring failures, financial stagnation, health struggles, or repeated disappointments. Prayer is a powerful tool to confront and dismantle these barriers, but it must be approached with authority, faith, and clarity. When a believer identifies areas of bondage or limitation and intentionally prays for freedom, they are participating in a spiritual process that releases blessings long delayed and restores the flow of divine favor. Curses and limitations often operate through generational patterns or negative thought systems that unconsciously influence behavior and outcomes. For instance, a mindset of scarcity can prevent someone from recognizing opportunities, while fear or doubt can sabotage effort and delay provision. Breaking these limitations requires both recognition and declaration. The believer must first identify the specific areas of oppression or restriction and then speak with authority to nullify their effect. Prayer in this context is not merely a plea, but a decree, a declaration that the power of limitation no longer holds sway over life, finances, health, or relationships. Prayer against limitations is effective because it aligns the believer with God's authority and provision. God has already provided victory over every curse, limitation, and obstacle. And declaring freedom aloud activates the spiritual law that releases that provision into the believer's life. When prayers are combined with faith-filled words, expectation, and prophetic declaration, the spiritual atmosphere changes. Forces that were previously operating in opposition are neutralized, and the path is cleared for blessing and abundance. Breaking limitations is not a one-time act. It requires persistence, focus, and the willingness to declare truth consistently until results are evident. Financial and relational breakthroughs often follow directly from addressing limitations and curses. For example, praying for freedom from generational poverty or repeated financial loss opens the door for provision that was previously blocked. Declaring restoration over relationships or favor over career and business removes obstacles that prevented growth and unlocks opportunity. The act of prayer in this context is transformative because it not only impacts external circumstances, but also reshapes the believer's mindset. The more limitations are confronted and overcome, the stronger faith becomes, creating a cycle of expectation, obedience, and reward. Breaking limitations also requires a heart of surrender and alignment with God's will. It is not about manipulation, but about claiming what has already been promised and restoring divine order where there has been oppression. When prayers are offered with clarity, authority, and faith, the believer begins to see tangible results, debts paid, opportunities arise, relationships healed, and peace restored. This principle demonstrates that blessings are often withheld not because of lack of effort, but because of unseen barriers. Removing these barriers through prayer activates supernatural favor, aligns the believer with divine timing, and opens the way for continuous, overflowing blessings to manifest in every area of life. A prophetic decree and thanksgiving are powerful spiritual practices that combine the authority of spoken faith with the heart posture of gratitude, creating an environment in which blessings flow freely. A prophetic decree is more than a prayer. It is a declaration of God's promises spoken with confidence and authority over every area of life. When believers decree favor, abundance, protection, or breakthrough, they are not merely wishing for change. They are asserting that God's will and provision are already in motion. This spoken faith carries weight in the spiritual realm, activating divine principles and inviting supernatural intervention into circumstances that may appear impossible. Decrees are prophetic because they announce what God has promised, bringing unseen realities into alignment with the present moment. Thanksgiving amplifies the power of prophetic decrees by cultivating a heart that acknowledges past and present blessings while anticipating future provision. Gratitude strengthens faith because it shifts the focus from lack to abundance, from uncertainty to trust, and from fear to confidence. A believer who combines decree with thanksgiving speaks from a place of assurance, demonstrating trust in God's faithfulness rather than desperation. This alignment of heart and mouth, a spiritual resonance that heaven responds to immediately. The act of giving thanks in advance of the manifestation is a declaration that the believer recognizes the blessing as already active, reinforcing both expectation and authority. Prophetic decree and thanksgiving work together to release favor in multiple dimensions of life. When a believer speaks a decree of financial increase while simultaneously giving thanks for provision, the spiritual atmosphere barriers that once blocked opportunity begin to dissolve, ideas for wealth creation emerge, and divine connections appear in relationships. Decreeing restoration while thanking God for peace strengthens reconciliation and invites divine guidance. In health, decreeing healing while expressing gratitude creates a spiritual environment where the body can respond to divine promise. This combination of authority and gratitude moves heaven and aligns unseen forces to manifest blessings in tangible ways. Consistency in prophetic decree and thanksgiving is critical. Daily practice ensures that faith remains active, expectation is maintained, and spiritual momentum continues to build. Each decree spoken and each word of thanks expressed strengthens the believer's alignment with God's will. Over time, this builds a pattern of supernatural favor that becomes evident in both subtle shifts and major breakthroughs. It also trains the believer's mind to focus on provision rather than limitation, reinforcing a lifestyle of faith, obedience, and gratitude. Prophetic decree paired with thanksgiving also cultivates humility and dependence on God. While the believer exercises authority in speaking blessings, they do so in acknowledgement that all provision comes from a higher source. This balance between authority and gratitude opens the way for continued blessings, protection, and guidance. It demonstrates that faith is active and participatory, requiring both declaration and acknowledgement of divine power. In essence, prophetic decree and thanksgiving create a spiritual cycle of expectation, authority, and reception. They invite God's presence, align the believer with divine timing, and amplify the flow of blessings in every area of life. When practiced faithfully, they transform prayer from routine words into a powerful instrument for manifestation, making the believer a conduit through which heaven's favor is released continuously. Beloved, as we draw this powerful October blessing prayer to a close, remember that the words you speak, the faith you release, and the gratitude you carry are not empty. They are the very keys to unlocking divine provision in your life. October is a month of alignment, harvest, and supernatural favor, and tonight through prayer, prophetic declaration, and thanksgiving, you have positioned yourself to receive abundantly. Every limitation broken, every blessing spoken, and every expectation held in faith is now setting in motion a flow of favor, increase, and breakthrough that will manifest in ways beyond what you can imagine. Your breakthrough does not depend on chance or timing of man. It depends on the authority of your words, the consistency of your faith, and the alignment of your heart with God's will. As you continue to declare blessings, give thanks, and act in faith, doors that were previously closed will open, opportunities will appear, and provision will locate you in unexpected ways. This is your season to step into abundance, peace, and divine favor. May this October be remembered as the month your faith shifted into action, your prayers became powerful decrees, and your life entered a new dimension of blessing. May every word spoken in faith bring multiplication, every act of obedience release favor, and every moment of gratitude amplify your breakthrough. Good luck, and thank you for joining in this transformative prayer. May your days ahead be filled with supernatural favor, unstoppable abundance, and unshakable faith. Walk boldly into your blessings, claim your provision, and let this October mark the beginning of your greatest season yet.